it's essentially, and this is what's difficult about it, is that it's negotiated, right? So they say, well, how long are you going to use it for? How many episodes? Is it the opening credits? Is that the end credits? Is it, at a dramatic part of the scene? There's a lot of negotiation about how the song is used sometimes.
Okay, so like they might pay more if it's like really driving home an emotional beat in a scene. They might pay more than if it's just they turn on the radio and it's playing in the background.
Exactly. They may.
Oh.
It's more than just your output, more than a bike. When you hear your shout out, you know it's all right. Put on your magic pants and let's go. We're cruising into the power zone. Clip in, set yourself free. Come on and take a ride with me. Know what you need to know and what's it all about. Everything you need, it's on the Clip Out.
Welcome to the Clip Out, episode 146. This is Crystal O'Keefe.
And this is Tom O'Keefe. Yes?
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's been a big day, but it was like big work stuff.
Boring work stuff, not something.
I mean, yeah, nothing that anybody else will care about, but I've had a lot of things go on.
Not boring.
I was like, yeah, geez.
I know.
God, Tom.
Oof. So this is our last episode.
Oh, careful. Don't make a joke at my expense. You might offend somebody who's sensitive about their job.
We got an email. Anyway, we won't go into that.
Yeah, moving along.
Yes, but don't worry. I won't change. Not just because I'm stubborn, but because I can't.
It's a tick.
Yeah, I got zero control over it. It should be like a medical condition.
Yes. Thank you out there, all of you who listen week after week and love Tom just the way he is, like myself.
So what do you have in store for people?
You know what? It's a whole lot of stuff about Peloton.
Well, I would hope.
We're going to hit on some homecoming stuff. We're going to hit on some other past guest updates. We're going to talk about instructors, what's going on with them, a little competitor news. We're going to have a little tiny visit from the Prophet, more celebrity news, and more talk about future guests and then content.
Okay, awesome. Well, before we get to all that, shameless plugs, don't forget, we're available on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. While you're there, be sure to subscribe or follow, whatever they call it there. And that way you never miss an episode. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/theclipout. While you're there, like the page, join the group. I guess you could like the group as well, but you'd have to just like it in real life. It's not an actual function of Facebook. You actually have to join. And you can also sign up for our newsletter, which has grown by leaps and bounds. So thank you very much. You can do that at our website, theclipout.com, and you can get all the show notes and links and stuff emailed to you in one handy-dandy location. Collect them all and trade with your friends.
Love it.
And I don't know, am I supposed to push something else?
No, I think that's it.
Oh, there's a donate button. If you want to throw some money our way, we'll take it. So there is all of that. I guess let's dig in, shall we?
Yes.
Wait.
What?
I did forget something.
What?
A review.
Oh, my gosh.
We have a new review.
Well, then let's hear it.
This is from By Flutter.
Okay.
And
I like that.
They say, such a great podcast. Tom and Crystal offer humor, information, more humor, opinion, and more humor.
Aw. All true. All very true.
They are great ambassadors of the Peloton community. Leaderboard name, Racontus.
I know that leaderboard name. That's nice.
Awesome. So thank you very much.
Also, I'm glad you had to say it because I would have never pronounced it correct.
Well, we don't know that I pronounced it correctly.
Okay. Well, it sounds correct.
They're not here to tell me I'm wrong.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So let's just assume I got it right.
Okay. Thank you for the great review.
Yes, thank you. And we love when people leave reviews. It helps us out, and it helps people that stumble upon the podcast maybe decide that they should check it out.
Yes.
So there. Now we are done with this portion and ready to move on.
It's time for news of the Peloton.
I know this might come as a shock to you.
Okay.
But somebody was mean on the internet this week.
Yeah. That's a fair thing.
Yeah.
God, people are so mean. People are so mean.
Yes.
Okay, but you know what ticks me off is when they never put themselves out there, ever.
Yeah.
And then they knock somebody who does. Like, you, sir or ma'am, are a big old weenie.
Well, we should probably tell people what we're talking about.
All right. Okay. So I saw a post about this. I have not watched the class, but I saw that Christine D'Ercole was attacked on social media. And this time, she was told that she needed to stop talking about her accomplishments. And I find that really frustrating because I don't think that people should go around bragging.
Right.
But I think that it's important to recognize and celebrate your successes, especially women. Like,
Yeah.
we do so much and we're so demure about it. Like, we should not have to be. And then people who say something like this, it's like, well, you're insecure and you can't handle her success. And so you're projecting it onto Christine.
Plus, instructors talk about things that go on in their life all the time.
Absolutely.
And sometimes in her life, she achieves things. So that's going to be a thing.
She is one of the most accomplished athletes that Peloton has. I mean, she's freaking gold medalist multi times. And that's amazing. And I am proud of her. I could never do what she does. And I realize that she doesn't have the same body type as other of our instructors that maybe annoys people at times. But I think it's amazing. Like, her body is built for power and she uses it. And that's fabulous. So, like, let's celebrate that. Why? I just don't understand. Like, why do you take time out of your day to shit on somebody else's good thing? Like, why would you do that?
People, man.
I know. Whoever wrote that needs to go read some Brene Brown.
Well, that's one thing to recommend them to do.
Well, we take a different tack,
Yes,
Tom.
I was like, that's not. I was like, yeah, why don't you go read a book? That's not where I landed.
Well, I was trying to say they need to learn better
Right.
ways to deal with things.
Yes.
But Christine responded in the ride, and she said this was on the 45-minute 80s ride on March 2nd. And she said that this person needs to find another instructor, perhaps another fitness workout overall, because that kind of negative attitude is not what Peloton promotes or encourages. And jealousy is not becoming.
They should get a flywheel at home. Oh, wait, they can't do that.
There's plenty of other knockoffs out there.
Yes, they deserve an echelon. That's what I think.
I know. Just don't follow. Like, you just don't follow. If you don't like it, just hit unfollow.
It's very easy.
It is.
So speaking of knockoffs, there's a new one.
Yes, there is.
I believe it was Andy Warhol who said, everyone will be a Peloton knockoff for 15 minutes. Is that what he said?
No, but
Something like
it's
that.
fair. But I have to give a shout out to John Mills yet again. He's really been on target with getting all these news articles. And this one is called the Stride Bike, STRYDE.
Oh.
Here's the thing. This is the difference. They have no studios.
Oh, that's a game changer.
Right. They claim that they have partnered with top cycling studios around the country, and they record classes in their facilities. So far, they have partnered with High Ride Cycle in Denver, Vibe Ride in Atlanta and Detroit, Ride House in Dallas, Red Bike in Miami, and City Cycle in Seattle. They also claim their fixed Android tablet is open, meaning you don't need their app or subscription to it. You can use it as a standard tablet, watch Netflix, or any other Android app on it.
So it's a bike and you get a tablet.
Yep.
Okay. I think what it comes down to is it's like Peloton has gotten so huge, you can make a living off of their crumbs.
Yeah. Everyone wants a piece of it.
Yes. I mean, I guess we're guilty of it too. But at least we started before the other people did.
Well, I would also say not only did we start before the other people did, but we recognized greatness and celebrated it.
We don't have our own bike that we're selling.
Right.
Nor
and
will
last
we.
I checked, we were not asking anyone to pay us for this.
That's true.
So unless you're doing something over there you're not telling me about.
Oh, just squirreling this money away. So homecoming is getting closer, and they should be giving us some idea of what it will look like here soon.
Yeah, schedules are due out on Monday, the 9th. So as a reminder, I expect everyone that's on the wait list to get moved up on the wait list, because I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot of dropouts that day. Because this year you don't get to choose your class.
Right.
You get put in a class.
So some people might get all huffy.
Oh, yeah. They got huffy last year and they got to choose, and they got very mad when they didn't get what they wanted. So I have no doubt that that's going to happen when it's chosen for them, because there are some people who do not want to be on the tread. They might have like reasons, medical reasons they can't do the tread. And then you have people who just aren't interested in yoga. So the bike is their flagship piece of what they do.
Right.
And so everybody wants the bike. I want a great opportunity to be with other instructors I haven't had a chance to be in a class with. So I'm really good with whatever I get. I will be happy. It's a new experience. And it's only one class, like the whole weekend. I don't go for the class.
Totally.
I'm taking the classes at home. I go to see and meet all the people. But not everybody has that attitude about it. And,
right.
And I've adjusted to it over the time period.
I mean, you just kind of got to make your peace with it.
You do. You do. If you want to take lots of classes, homecoming weekend is not the weekend to go.
Totally.
Like, it's just not going to happen. I mean, you could just go early and just sit in the studio and do it that way. But if you're not prepared to do that, then homecoming weekend is not for you.
No. So past guest update.
Yes.
So last week.
It was either last week or 2 weeks ago. No, it was last week.
Okay. Peloton put out a promotional video featuring the Mills.
They did.
And there's a new one this week featuring yet another past guest.
Yes. May. Or her leaderboard name is May. And she was episode 57, if you are interested. And May is one of my all-time favorite guests.
She was great.
Such a great guest. So well-spoken. She's smart and she's sassy. And I love that. And I hope that I am like her when I am in my 70s. I hope I have her mobility and her get up and go and still to be working. She's fabulous.
Well, you've already got the smart and sassy. So you're off to a good start.
Thanks.
Now you just need the glasses.
Well, congrats, May. You deserve it.
Yes, absolutely. So the Prophet has a new prediction.
Yes. Prophet is telling us that we are going to be seeing the new spring line dropping this week. It should be out before this episode. I am hearing that it's going to be the evening of March 4th, which is today, that it's going to be out online, and then it's going to hit the stores on Friday. And they did the things a little bit differently this time. Brand new, never done it before.
Right.
They did a sneak peek at the spring line. So one outfit, basically male outfit, one female outfit, was placed out on sale early. And you could only get it through social media links. Like if you went to their store, you would not see it.
Right.
And I thought that was very interesting. I'm curious. Why would you do that? Oh, marketing guru?
Yeah.
What's the point of that?
I don't know. So what did that cost me?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a big pastel color kind of person.
Yeah. Miami Vice kind of ruined it for you.
Yeah. And I'm curious what the rest of the spring colors will be. But I don't know. It's not my color. What they put out wasn't my color.
Right.
So I don't know. I want to see what the rest of it looks like before I commit, If that was the only thing that they had, I probably would have bought it because I have a sickness.
Well, recognizing you have a problem is half the battle.
Phew. Okay.
So Rebecca Kennedy was featured on mindbodygreen.com, which I thought was a site for fan fiction about the Hulk.
No.
Okay.
It's also not about weed, which is what I thought.
Okay.
It is
it says a lot about both of us, doesn't it?
It does. I'm not sure. Yeah. Let's move on.
She is glaucoma free.
So are you.
Okay, that's fair.
This is actually a blog from Westin Hotels and Resorts, and it is all about Rebecca Kennedy's tips for fitting in fitness when you're on the go. And she had a similar article to this not too long ago. Actually, I think this might be the same thing. Maybe they reused it. It was in December. And they put it out again on Instagram. Rebecca Kennedy put it out on Instagram. But you know what? When I was reading through it, there were some good tips, and we're getting ready to travel a lot. So I wanted to make sure people saw it. And it's always great to support our instructors and let them know we saw their content. And there's a video, which I don't remember the video being attached to the last one. So maybe there was, and I didn't look that hard last time. That also could be a thing. I
feel like your tip for fitness while you're traveling is like, step 1, go to homecoming.
Well, I mean, that can't be the tip every time, but I will say the first weekend in May, That is my tip.
You got it down.
Yes. And if you don't want to bring exercise clothes, go to the Peloton warehouse sale, buy all the workout clothes, and then work out all weekend.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
And they're so cheap, you can just pitch them when you're done. You don't even
Just
got to
disposable.
You don't even got to bring home sweaty clothes.
The only thing is you got to wait online for like 3 hours to get in there and look through the boxes.
It was a thing, man.
And when we went, it was dead compared to the first day.
Well, yeah, because we went on the Sunday, but everything was pretty picked over too.
Yeah,
they still had a lot, but
not only did they have a lot, but the prices get cheaper throughout the weekend. So by the time we went, it was literally like, even if I didn't know something was going to fit, I just bought it. It's like $5.
Yeah, I'm
going to buy it.
It's like the last day of the book fair.
Yes. I'm so excited. I can't wait.
Oh, you have so many books already. I don't know why.
I meant for homecoming.
That makes much more sense.
Okay.
In this context. So Ross Rayburn was featured on Bustle.
Yeah. And I don't know much about bustle.com, but what I do know is that it was a great article about how meditating changes your workout. And it wasn't just Ross that was quoted, but it was all about meditation in general. And he was one of the instructors that was quoted. And so we got to give him props. That's exciting. He is an amazing instructor. He's got a great meditation voice, too.
Does he put you to sleep?
Yes, he does. Like it's like very soothing. Like it's super, super soothing. And he's so calm. Just thinking about his voice is making me like get quieter right now and calmer. Maybe I should have listened to him at work today.
I'm going to make it like your ringtone. And whenever you start to get amped up, I'll just call your phone real quick.
Thanks.
So I'm going to call an audible right here.
Go for it.
It's not in our run of show, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. About our guest this week.
Okay.
Sekou.
Yes.
Campbe.
Yes.
And we've been trying for...
Oh, yeah, totally. This is so exciting.
Like years.
Yes.
I mean, right? I mean, it's been a long time to find someone that knows about music licensing and how it relates to Peloton versus TV and movies and why it's so complicated and why didn't they just do it from the start?
Right.
And it's so obvious when you don't know what you're talking about. And so we finally found someone that knew what they were talking about and was willing to come on and talk about it. So that was very, very exciting to finally get that.
Yes. And what a great interview, too.
Yes.
He is very talkative for an attorney.
Totally.
Like in a good way.
Once he realized...
Not like a boring, dry talking.
Yeah, totally. Like once he realized we weren't going to like sue him or something, he's like, oh, okay, I can talk to these people like real people.
He was super fun.
Yeah.
I loved it.
And we'll just say this, New Jack City.
Yes.
That's all we're going to say. But you got to listen to it for no other reason than New Jack City.
Yes.
What does that have to do with anything? Oh,
exactly.
That's what you call a tease.
Yes.
So...
Yeah, no, I'm really glad you brought that up because it's such a great interview. And there's so many people that have been like, what is this about? What does it mean now that, you know, there's a settlement? You know, and we cover all of that and we cover it from an actual expert standpoint. And we talk about how it applies to other industries as well and why this is different specifically for Peloton. So, yes, good point, Tom. Glad you called that audible. Good call.
Thank you. There were a couple new celebrity related Peloton items this week.
Yeah, so it's exciting that Jimmy Fallon posted about Peloton, but it also was a little sad. He's having some trouble. He's having some motivation trouble.
Yeah, he was saying that he bought a tread and only used it a few times, and now he's trying to like get back to it.
Yes, and so then Peloton shared it, and if you want to join in to motivate Jimmy Fallon, if you believe he actually looks at his Instagram, I don't know, I'm suspicious. Then you should post your workouts and use the hashtag #UseItOrLoseIt when you post it, because he asked for people to do that, to give him motivation. And I mean, we are the Peloton community, so that's what we do. We adopt people, we pull them in, and then we lift them up. So that's going to be a great thing to do. And I hope that, he's going to share people's actual post. So I hope that maybe one of us out there in the Peloton community actually gets their shared. That'd be pretty cool.
You know what? Actually, I think that hashtag isn't quite right. It's use it and lose it.
And, not or.
Right.
Okay.
Because it's not use it or it's like you're going to use this equipment that you haven't been using.
And you're going to lose it.
And now you will lose the weight.
Oh, well, I'm glad you caught that. Thank you.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay. I mean, usually it's the other way around, but that's okay.
Let me have my moment.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Jeez. And also Bobby Brown, not from New Edition.
Yeah. What is this Bobby Brown famous for? I really don't know anything about her, but I know it's a her. She has a podcast, and it's called Beyond the Beauty with Bobby Brown. And this,
it's a cosmetics company?
I think so.
Okay.
And so Bobby sat down with her nutrition expert, and her nutrition expert is Lauren Slayton. So that's the name of the episode. What should I eat and why am I always hungry, with nutritionist Lauren Slayton. But the point being that in the middle of this podcast, Bobby Brown talked about her Peloton.
It was funny because when I was like Bobby Brown, not the guy from New Edition, and you're like, oh, it's a female Bobby Brown, I was instantly like, because I'm always a 15-year-old boy somewhere in my head. Okay. I was like, oh, it's the model from the cherry pie video. And I promise you.
That was her name.
I know it's her name. I promise you, there are a lot of men of a certain age.
Okay, got it.
That were like, oh, the girl from the cherry pie video. She's my cherry pie.
No.
No.
Different Bobby Brown.
Right.
Okay. Well, now that we've settled that, so check out the podcast. And of course, the link will be available in the newsletter this week.
And finally, closing out our celebrity segment of the podcast, Trevor Noah had a couple Peloton jokes.
Yeah. What's the name of that show? That
The Daily Show?
Yes. I couldn't remember. Well, we never watch it, in my defense. But yeah, so there's a link that's out there from the episode, and it's about 2.5 minutes in, and he gets a couple of digs in at Peloton, in case you want to hear some, not like mean, but like joking, some Peloton jokes. And I believe it was all about the coronavirus. So my understanding is the jokes were in relation to that.
Oh, so they're just stealing stuff I said on the show last week.
Probably.
Yeah,
they probably listened. He probably listened, and he took all your ideas.
Yeah, happens all the time.
Trevor Noah. So check it out. And if you can't find it, don't worry. Just make sure that you have signed up for our newsletter, because, of course, it will be included in the newsletter.
Remember when that guy from the New Yorker stole one of my jokes?
I do remember that, actually.
Somebody called him on
legit.
it, and he wouldn't acknowledge it, but he deleted his tweet?
Yes.
Oh.
You're a funny guy.
Much drama.
Mm-hmm.
So you got new playthings this week.
I did. And as one of your friends pointed out, a new exercise toy. Calm down.
Well, I will say, unassembled, if you don't have anything for scale,
okay,
it looked...
yeah.
Like an item.
All right. Okay, stop.
That you might have to get from adamandeve.com.
Well, it wasn't. It was a new exercise toy, and it's called Fight Camp. And I haven't even gotten to use it yet, because you assemble it. It's not like the Peloton or the tread or even the tonal that requires a lot of installation, so you can easily do it yourself. Right.
There's not really, because I was there.
He was standing in the room.
We'll say helping.
Right. My daughter did most of the work. The 13-year-old girl.
I was supervising. Mm-hmm. Look, I don't see gender. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, girl, you sit over here while the man does it. I'm trying to help her.
I know. You're letting her be herself,
right,
and, find her talents.
Yes.
Which she actually is incredibly mechanically inclined.
Yes.
And more than I am, for darn sure.
And definitely more. I mean, anybody pretty much is more than me.
Yeah.
But that's true. But it was a relatively simple process.
Yeah. So now we're just waiting, because you fill it. And so we're waiting for all of the stuff that we filled it with to be all settled. So you're going to get to hear about my first workout next week.
I'm getting a little nervous, though.
Why?
Because the way the basement was structured, it was like, oh, your fitness stuff and my comic books.
Well, you didn't want to do your comic books with me.
But where am I going to put them? Like, you're encroaching on my comic book area.
Well,
we're gonna need a bigger house.
Yep. I'm super excited to try it out, though.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be really fun.
Well, people have that to look forward to. You give them tales of Fight Camp.
Yes.
Getting a little worried.
I think he's really just worried that I'm gonna know how to fight.
I am. Like, it started with I'm going to get thinner, and then it became I'm going to get stronger, and now it's I'm going to learn to kick people's ass.
I'm leveling up, Tom.
I know.
You could level up too.
I think it's easier just to get my ass kicked. Takes up a lot less time of my day.
Oh my God.
So last week we talked about the Humans of New York guy whose name we now know, Brendan Dunn.
Yes.
And he reached out.
He did. And thank all of you. I had several people reach out to me and give me his name. So thank you guys for that. I really appreciate it. And somebody gave him our email address and he emailed us. So now we get to interview him. So it'll be a few weeks before we're able to air it, but we are going to get to interview him. And I am super excited about this. He is pumped. And just in case anybody wants a little tiny update, he has been completely adopted by the XXL tribe and he has been working out every single day since.
Awesome.
So I'm excited to see where we are later in the process. So
cool. Well, good for him.
yes. And good for our awesome community. That's what we do. We lift people up. Except on the OPP.
So last week we had the first 2-for-1 boot camp.
Right. With Jess and Chase, which was awesome. The first 30 minutes anyway.
And so...
I didn't do the second half.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm sure the last half was just as awesome. It's just I was exhausted from my tonals, so I got off of the tread.
I was like...
Sure, it continued.
You should probably explain that.
Yeah. As soon as the words were out of my mouth, I was like, no. Like it was, I'm sure the whole thing was good. I just felt bad because I only did half.
Right.
So that was really my guilt speaking.
Gotcha. And so coming up now is the first 2-for-1 yoga.
Yes. This is so exciting. It's going to be Aditi and Anna Greenberg, and they are going to be doing, again, the first 2-for-1 yoga, and it's also celebrating Women's History Month. And if you guys haven't noticed, if you don't get the newsletter, you may have missed that there are tons of Women's History Month classes this week, this whole month, and this is going to be one of them. So it's going to be celebrating and honoring women who have lifted us up throughout the decades of our lives. And so they're also going to talk about some of their favorite athletic fashions throughout their lives while they do the 2-for-1 yoga.
Awesome. And then finally, there's a Soka boot camp.
Yeah, I think that means Southern California.
Okay.
I'm not that down with the kids.
I always thought they said SoCal.
Yeah, I think it's just Soka now.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
Well, people are so busy.
Right.
They don't
That
have
extra
time
letter,
to say SoCal.
And I also could just be wrong. There's that.
And the only thing I know about Southern California culture, I learned from Sublime.
Yeah, and I think this is more the hip hop side of things, but again, could be wrong.
Now it's making sense. It's also explaining why I don't know about it.
Because whenever you were a radio DJ, you were not doing.
I was all rock.
So, but here's the thing. Chase Tucker, your favorite country star, did a boot camp all about Soka, and it was amazing. And he danced during the floor routines. Like you were dancing as you did the floor routines.
Gotcha.
So it was just basically a dance party, which you can't get much better than that with the boot camp. I mean, boot camps are tough because, you run and then you hop off the tread and then you lift the weights. And this was like doing body weight exercises while dancing. So good stuff. Very entertaining. You definitely need to check it out.
Checking in with the Peloton community.
So joining us today via the magic of Skype-a-phone is Sekou Campbe. Hey, how's it going?
Hi, I'm good, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
I feel like whenever we talk to attorneys, I'm like, oh, I know what their hourly rate is.
I know, right?
I should talk faster.
Which is scary because you talk a lot.
I do.
And on that note,
Bill's already in the mail.
Oh no,
man. This guy's good.
Got to be efficient.
Yes.
But by that token, we need to give everybody kind of a heads up that like my usual question, how I always start these interviews is, how did you find Peloton? And so my understanding is you do not ride Peloton or use Peloton.
I do not.
Okay.
Which is okay.
And that's absolutely fine.
Neither do I.
Yeah, exactly.
Finally. I'm not alone.
No, Tom. But we came across your article that you wrote for Law 360, and it was all about the different transactions and sync licensing and all kind of about Peloton and the current lawsuit they had with Dmca. And so that's when we reached out to you. You were kind enough to accept our begging of you to be on our show. We have had such a hard time finding somebody who really gets this.
Yeah, like a little background. Like, obviously, music licensing has been a thing with Peloton for a while, right? And we've been trying to find like an expert in the field, someone knowledgeable. And my background is in radio, and so I've reached out to people I know and like at music labels and that manage rock bands like Metallica and Shinedown and like people
and attorneys,
people that work at Spotify, people that work at Interscope Records, and everybody's like,
not touching this with a 10-foot pole.
We don't understand it. And I'm like, but you do it for a living. And they're like, yeah, but we don't understand it. We don't know why it works or what happens or who gets paid how.
They just do their thing.
We don't want to talk about it. So
having said all that, can you give us a little bit of your background and how you came to know all about music licensing?
Well, I guess first I'll give you the disclaimer that I certainly don't know about all of it.
Sure. Nobody does, apparently.
And it's certainly accurate that no one knows all about this. I think a lot of what you'll likely hear me say is, I don't know, or or no one knows.
Or in theory.
Which is why lawsuits like this arise in the first place, is because no one really knows kind of, what the boundaries are. But I've been working, I've been an attorney for 10 years, started off in litigation, did a lot of entertainment related litigation. I've since, for the last 5 years or so, been doing more transactional work across a ton of different mediums, from literary to music to film, TV, etc. So I've had to dabble on sort of both sides in music licensing for various reasons, including sync licensing. So, and I also work with a number of tech companies, which is what intrigues me about Peloton, is the fact that in this space in particular, these kinds of questions are very difficult to answer.
Yeah, it seems like what we were running into and what Peloton is running into was that it's essentially uncharted territory. If you have a radio station,
exactly,
everybody knows what the rules are.
One thing I feel like I really want to put out there, if you're comfortable putting it out there, is that I have had so many people say to me or post on Peloton's, all their pages and stuff, Peloton should have been on top of this. They should have known. They should have done the right thing. And Tom and I have said, like, we feel like we're shouted it from the rooftop. Like, it's not that simple, guys. Yeah. And so from your vantage point, would you agree it's not that simple?
It's certainly not that simple. It's a lot of it is a game of risk. So, you have to sort of weigh. I mean, in some sense, everything that they did involves some risk. No one gets into a venture like Peloton without, tolerating a lot of risk, which is also reward, right? There's a lot of growth at Peloton right now.
Yeah, totally.
Just a smidge.
Right. So, you have to kind of balance those things out. I mean, the same thing in my article, I reference the DMCA, which is really a reference to sites like YouTube. When YouTube started, there was no DMCA. And so there was, there certainly could have been a lot more risk for them. And they just got, a law that helped them out, which was sort of what I was saying in the article, which is that, there probably will be more Pelotons, and they'll probably need to have a law passed so that we can figure out this space in a more concrete way, rather than having multi-$100-million lawsuits filed.
So for the uninitiated, can you kind of explain what the DMCA is and how it helped?
Sure. DMCA stands for the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Let me just back up for a second just to give some context. So the copyright law has been around for hundreds of years. It's actually, the basis of it is in the Constitution since 1789. But the last really major revision of the Copyright Act was the year I was born, 1976. So that's pre-internet, pre a lot of stuff. Right. So around the turn of the millennium, the DMCA was passed. And one of the features of the DMCA is to create a safe harbor. And there are tons of safe harbors in the law for all kinds of things. This one is for internet service providers like YouTube, for allowing others, individual users, to post potentially infringing copyrighted work. And so if I go on and post infringing work, YouTube is not automatically liable or secondarily liable for what I post if they have a particular set of procedures in place called the takedown procedures. So that's why, and now it's, YouTube is so big that now a lot of it's automated, but you'll see like if you post something, sometimes it's automatically blocked now. But even if it's not, if I'm the copyright owner and someone else has put up my work on YouTube, I can contact YouTube and have them take it down. And then they let us fight it out before they put it back up.
Yeah, it is largely automated because I run into this problem with what I do in my day job, which is I'm a concert promoter. And sometimes I'll need to post like a commercial that the band provided me to YouTube. And then YouTube will tell me, you don't have the rights to that music. And, and I'm like, but the band
but I do.
told me to. Like, I'm only utilizing it to promote the band's show. And so and sometimes it's gotten better. I think they've flagged certain accounts where they know, like, oh, you're a concert venue, and so this is different, and they let you do it. But yeah, it is automated, and it can be a nightmare.
That sounds to me like the CAPTCHAs, when it's like find the sidewalk.
Yes.
Right.
I'm like, I really am human. Like, please just let me.
I know.
That's what that sounds like.
You made the sidewalk so tiny, I can't see it.
Exactly.
Or sometimes you start to just have an existential crisis about like, but really, what is a sidewalk?
What is a sidewalk?
Like,
I totally
I'm
do
from New
that.
York. We jaywalk, so
right.
It's all sidewalk.
Right.
Yes, exactly. So, okay, so you're not a Peloton writer, but you were interested in Peloton enough to write the article. So how did that come to be?
So I'm going to try to truncate the story. It's a long story. But I'm an avid runner. I say I really was, and now just started getting back into it. I ran 5 half marathons before I went to law school. And then I went to law school and it all went to hell.
Yeah.
I can't imagine
these
why.
things happen.
Yeah.
Sedentary lifestyle, had more kids, all that kind of stuff.
Totally.
So
Time to get a Peloton tread. I'm just saying.
Yeah, exactly. So 10 years out, I decided, you know what? It is time. My youngest is now 5. So he's sort of more self-sufficient. I can't leave him home alone, but I certainly have more time to get up early and work out.
I was going to say, well,
so I've been doing...
you can leave him home alone. It's just not advised.
Yeah, right. So since, I guess also, a lot of stuff happened. So over the summer, I decided I'm going to sort of focus on this. So I've been very conscientious about getting up and just running. And I usually do it in the morning. And almost every morning, I'm sure your listeners will be familiar with this, is that ad that says, are you that person that gets up, before dawn, before the sun rises? Are you familiar with this ad?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Making sure. Okay. So I'm like, almost every morning I hear that. I'm like, oh, Peloton. Wow. This is like a thing. And, noticed it more and more. And I certainly have some colleagues who I know who use it and love it. And, I've seen the great things and some of the controversies about Peloton and just thought, wow, this is a really neat idea. And I always, like I said, because I work with some tech companies that are sort of on that nice edge as well, I'm always interested to know, and I'm also interested specifically in this issue about sort of the competitive versus anti-competitive issues in copyright, how Peloton would deal with an issue like this, because music is so important in my sort of comeback after 10 years
Absolutely.
of working out. So I can imagine that Peloton, any Peloton user, the music would be critical as well. And in every ad, it's like such a big part of it. One of my favorite ads is the Ready or Not, right? Where he's singing off key. Those are just great. And it's true. Music is so, I was talking to a colleague of mine recently who was clamoring for just instrumental tracks.
Oh,
just so the words don't get in the way of your workout. And I was like, that's a great idea to just do workout tracks that are just instrumental. So yeah, that's smart. So the point is that music is obviously very important to working out. And I thought this is a great, interesting, nice edge question that doesn't affect, we talked about the DMCA. There are other sort of stopgap measures that copyright law has implemented to deal with the advancing technology. But this one has just sort of not yet been addressed. And I think it, obviously hit Peloton particularly hard. But I would imagine there are a lot of other companies out there for which this is going to be an issue.
So do you feel is there something they could have done? to not be in this situation, short of either not existing or just writing a blank check to anybody who wrote a song?
I think they're doing it now. I mean, I think, and I mentioned some of this in the article. So I looked at like through their LinkedIn and who they hired in their music division. And I think a lot of what they're doing now, they hired a lot of like former record executives essentially and music supervisors from TV to help them. And I think that's probably the right idea. I don't know enough about their business to know whether they could have attracted those people earlier, right? There's also this question of like, how much capital do you have to recruit those kinds of people? And
Right.
Sure.
how many resources can you devote to what? But I think that's certainly the best move given the environment in the short term. I'm hesitant a little bit because I don't, as a lawyer, I don't want to say, oh yeah, go break the law.
Yeah.
But at the other hand, like I think on some level, sometimes that's sort of you sort of have to manage that risk and be willing to sort of take those chances to figure out how to negotiate a deal. And sometimes I say litigation is simply transaction by another means. And so that may have been, it appears like that may have been what was at play here.
Well, it's interesting because I didn't say it as eloquently but I was making this argument the whole time this was going on that like they're in uncharted territory. Nobody knows what the rules are. And sometimes when you don't know what the rules are, you can either sit on the sideline and wait for somebody else to do it and reap the rewards, or you just jump in and knowing you're going to get sued. And then you go to court
and let them figure it out.
And you guys fight, and then you figure out what the rules are, and now you know, and you write a check, and you move on. And so, like, I was saying this for a long time, that, like, I don't think this was ever about them refusing to pay, because if it was, like, every record label, every publishing company in the world would be coming after them, and it was really more just there was, a handful of them that they couldn't reach deals with because they didn't, I guess, agree with the dollar amount, and so then they were like, well, then fight me.
And there's precedent for that. There's Google Books, had a long drawn out litigation for this, basically, essentially the same kind of issues in scanning books. And so there's certainly a history of particularly technologies that are on the cutting edge, not really knowing what the law is because there is no law. It's a brand new technology. Yeah. And so you just figure it out. At
some point, I want to have a little bit of clarification for people who might be listening to this for the first time. Like, I think we probably ought to explain what kind of licenses Peloton needed and like where exactly the disconnect was, like what exactly was missing. And I just want to make sure we address that. So you can go ahead and finish your question and then.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, didn't Spotify kind of do something similar? Like when they launched, they didn't have all their ducks in a row over who had the rights to what. And they just kind of went ahead and did it and then figured it out on the fly to a certain degree.
That's right. It's funny. I just listened to an interview with the founder and he was talking about that. Apparently, is it the Netherlands or Sweden? Sweden.
Something like that. Yeah.
And I think in Sweden, they just kind of gave up when he started out. Like they just didn't enforce copyright.
That's a good deal if you can get it.
So he was like, oh, this is great. And he was like, once they started being more, and I'm sort of over exaggerating, I'm sure they did something, but basically, he had sort of free reign in Sweden when they started. And once the law sort of caught up with him, it was kind of too late. And so they already had this great business model and they kind of had to figure it out on the fly, as you say. So, but now they have largely legislation in place. So I think that's sort of the evolution of these things. They get first someone is sort of a bandit, and then there's litigation, and there's some case law, and then eventually there's legislation that comes up years later. So my guess is that will likely happen here because Peloton will get competitors and already are getting competitors. And so, this issue will continue to become relevant for sure. And Crystal, to your question, I think the copyright, if you could bear with me, I would love to just talk sort of some basic copyright principles.
Totally.
So copyright law protects a bundle of rights, essentially. And because they're intangible, there's no way to exclude anyone else from sort of using them in any way they see fit. So unlike a house where you can just put a lock on the door and no one else can get in your house, you can't really do that with things like photographs, choreography, music, film, etc. So those are all copyrighted. And it's essentially just anything original, fixed in a tangible medium. That's it. It just has to be fixed in a tangible medium, and then it's deemed to be copyrightable and copyrighted, actually, once it's fixed. Their registration gives you a bunch of additional rights, but really all you have to do is essentially write it down or otherwise fix it in a tangible medium. And then once you have those rights, and there are a number of them, things like reproduction, distribution, derivative works, once you have those rights, you can sort of slice them up any way you want. And music is a particularly complex one because there are a lot of components to music on the creation side, and there are a lot of outputs on the other side. So there are a lot of ways that you can own the music, and there are a lot of ways that you can license it to be used. So I call it sort of like a layer cake. So you have the music itself, the notes on the composition, the lyrics, the recorded sound. That's the sound recording copyright.
Okay.
And those are all different rights. They can be chopped up and combined in different ways, and different people can own them. And then you have the uses of them, which are myriad, right? You can own a CD, which is just a copy of the recording, reproduction, right? You can have it streaming. You can have what Peloton, which is a sync license, which is that the music is being an audio visual work. Before Peloton, the most common use was like film and television, right? So you watch a movie, there's some great music to it. That film producer had to get a sync license and probably a master use license from the owners of the sound recording and then composition. And so that was the thing that's at issue. When you're producing a film or a television show, you have time. You have a pre-production period where you go through, your rights clearances, and you sort of scope out. You have a music supervisor who figures out what music's going to be in there, what the budget is for that, and then goes and negotiates those rates for that music. From reading the case in Peloton, the issue is, and this makes sense, you create a workout. It's fairly quick, right? So it sounds like they were doing it with days or maybe even hours, they were saying, before they were going live with them, with the workouts, which makes sense. A great song comes out, you have a DJ, you're ready to kind of put this workout together, and it probably gives the workout that much more vibrance. And, just looking at the comments from the community that I've seen, you will know more about this than me, but looking at the comments from the community, it seems like that was a really big factor in the use of the bike, was how great the workouts were. And I would imagine a lot of that comes from how great the music was. And so
absolutely,
I think,
yes.
Yeah. So I think that was the real issue. There was not the kind of pre-production time that you have for a film or television show.
Just one quick clarification question. Let's say they have workout A and it has a song in it, and then workout B also has that same song. Do they have to get a second sync license, or does the first sync license last a long period of time and somehow covers both?
In the traditional film television world, those would be two separate licenses for sure. But you could negotiate. I mean, those are things that you could negotiate, right? Like if it's, for example, like an opening to a show, you would negotiate the opening for all the shows. You wouldn't do it just for that.
So like when Wonder Years uses Get By With a Little Help from My Friends from Joe Cocker, they would license that because they know they're going to use it every week. So every show. It would be under a different license, but if they use Bookends by Simon and Garfunkel on one episode, which was a really good one.
Okay.
They would just need it once.
Exactly. Right.
Okay, but that adds quite a bit of...
in episode 1 and then episode 5, they may need to pay extra for it. It's essentially, and this is what's difficult about it, is that it's negotiated, right? So they say, well, how long are you going to use it for? How many episodes? Is it the opening credits? Is that the end credits? Is it, at a dramatic part of the scene? There's a lot of negotiation about how the song is used sometimes.
Okay, so like they might pay more if it's like really driving home an emotional beat in a scene. They might pay more than if it's just they turn on the radio and it's playing in the background.
Exactly.
Oh.
They may.
Interesting.
And
right.
And then one other clarification: if that's happening, or when you do these sync licenses, would they be negotiating with the publisher, or would they be negotiating with the people who wrote the song, or who are they negotiating with when they make these deals? Or is it both or multiple?
Both.
So you can see where it
So
gets
you need
complicated.
all the rights. You need the composition, the music, and the sound recording rights as well, the master rights.
So let me give you an example of something we ran into the other day. So I'm weird, and we were watching St. Elsewhere. Okay. So
that's not weird. Not for my generation.
yeah, totally. We're
I was like,
roughly
you're
the
the
same
perfect age to say that.
Yeah. St. Elsewhere was awesome.
It was.
He gets it. So
Isn't that where Denzel got his
It is
start?
exactly where Denzel, and also Alfre Woodard that because she
There
was
you
his
go.
love interest.
We've been binge watching
great
this.
show.
Yeah, it's a great show. So, but I've noticed that like they clearly didn't maintain rights to songs because there's so many times when they're playing a song where it must have been something contemporary at the time and made sense, but now we get generic rock song.
Yeah.
And so we ran into one the other day where they were singing a Talking Head song, Psycho Killer by the Talking Heads, and a character was singing along, so they had to license that song, right? They couldn't just dub in something generic. But they didn't license the Talking Heads version of Psycho Killer. They got a sound-alike band to do it. So it sounded...
So they didn't have to pay for the sound recording.
Right.
Yes. It was crazy.
But that song's written by the guy who sings it. So I guess I'm just confused of like why he would give them the rights to the song, but not the rights to his version of the song.
Well, he may not own the masters.
Okay.
So it may be the record company that owns it. Or I'm curious, where were you watching St. Elsewhere? Was it on broadcast?
It was on streaming. We were watching it
was on streaming.
We were watching on Hulu.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting topic. I'm also interested in it. I don't know as much about it, but I've been reading about this issue on Netflix as well. They've had this almost like an Orphan Works issue almost, where they either can't find the owners of the rights or it's just too expensive or what have you. But because people are becoming interested in these old, like apparently Friends is like one of the most streamed things on Netflix.
Yeah.
But these older shows are now becoming popular and they don't necessarily have all the rights that they should have because there are all these other rights like these that are not licensed. So that's very interesting. I would imagine if it were broadcast, you would have those. That was the case that Peloton tried to cite in its counter claim. It tried to cite a case involving syndicated shows on broadcast, which they do negotiate with the publishers to get those rights on broadcast television shows.
Okay. I know. I know WKRP famously had a lot of issues because they use so much music, and the way I understand it, and you would know this better than me, presumably, but that they had negotiated the rights for like the original episode and like 3 re-airings, and so it got them through like their first round of syndication, and then they had to pull out all the songs. And part of the reason, and they licensed it, they shot the show on video because there was a special law that if a show was shot on video, it didn't have to pay the same as a show that was shot on film for music, and it was intended for variety shows. And so they shot it on video so they could get the songs cheaper. And then when the show ended up in syndication, they lost all the rights because they didn't think about the fact of like, what if somebody cares about the show 20 years from now?
Right.
Because it wasn't a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No one did that. Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
What a mess.
Yeah. I mean, there are people out there. And I've referenced it slightly in my article. There are people out there. I'm not sure I buy so these are scholars who kind of think about this in the practical real world. I'm not sure if this would fly, but there are people who at least argue the fair use sort of angle to this, that really sync licensed music is fair use. I think that's a hard argument just because it's the economic impact that would have on the music industry, which has already taken a ton of economic impacts, would be pretty significant. But there at least is an argument to say, because a lot of the things that I talked about, the Google Books, VCRs, recording, those kinds of things are any kind of new technology very often gets deemed fair use. And so that's a sort of another line or another reason why someone like Peloton could say, hey, and they didn't do this, you're right. They didn't just like wholesale not pay anybody for the music.
Right.
But if they had, they could try to argue that this was fair use. Again, it's a hard one. You know, I don't know how far that would get you in the industry, certainly.
Probably not. Yeah.
But
I believe
it's an argument that scholars make. So, you know,
yeah, I believe
worth talking about.
If they had tried that, though, I believe, and I don't want to play lawyer, you're the lawyer here, but I believe the legal term for that would be douchey. Am I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah. That's a good technical term.
I like this lawyer. So what is your take on the settlement they reached? Have you got a chance to look at that a little bit and just like, do you feel like that was a win-win? Do you feel like it? I know sometimes they'll put out a press release and say we all agreed and we're all happy, but like you guys can read between the lines and be like, that ain't what that really means. Like, can you do you have any insight there?
It doesn't solve the problem, right? So I think the reason I wrote the article is that I think there is a real issue with the fact that copyright intentionally confers a monopoly on the owners, right? Whenever you create a piece of artwork, you alone own it. And that's a good thing. And we want that so that artists can make money. The problem is when you get to this level of complexity, I think you have what we often call is a holdout problem, right? So there's this handful of publishers essentially who can, because you need all of it, they can really sort of charge whatever they want at some point, right? They kind of can hold it hostage. And so that's an issue for anyone in a new technology. And I just think, you know, if you look at the arc of new technologies in this field, they're just more and more of them more frequently, right? I mean, you had like the printing press, and a few hundred years later, you had like the phonograph and then radio and then TV. And now it's like every 2 years, there's like a new technology that has major copyright implications. So,
yeah, it's like, oh, what if like my refrigerator plays music now?
That's true.
Yeah.
And artificial intelligence. I mean, there's a whole there's going to be so much in the next 5 years that it's like I worry that this method of some bandit will go out there, and I don't mean to call Peloton bandit, but but somebody goes out there to test the waters. There's litigation, there's case law, right? That's a very inefficient way to figure out the economics of a market like this. And so I'm hoping that, we can kind of figure out a way. So my take on the settlement is that I think it's great for the publishers, probably. My guess, I mean, I don't know what the terms are, but they're probably great for the publishers. And I'm happy I want musicians to earn a lot of money.
Absolutely. Just to be clear, we agree with that.
Nobody's against them getting paid for their work.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's a great new revenue stream for musicians. Like we should applaud that this hopefully will take off. I just feel like the way we get there is so inefficient and requires paying folks like me a ton of money who don't make music. I mean, great for those lawyers, but I'd rather go to the musicians and the folks who make Peloton than the lawyers, frankly. And I think if we can think together as practitioners about how these economics work, we can figure out a more efficient system.
Yeah, I mean, the unintended consequence is that they're incentivizing the bandits, as you've said, because they're leaving people with no other option.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it stinks for new innovation. It also penalizes new innovation.
Right.
Because then it's like it stifles that creativity. Because now I have a tonal, which is kind of like a strength Peloton. It's Peloton but with strength. And what they do, and in my mind to get around it, is they don't have live classes, so it's different anyway, but they also have a radio station, basically several different radio stations you can choose from while you do your workout. And so I'm seeing that lots of these other these companies that are like Peloton are going that direction. So it's interesting.
So I had an end run idea around the music licensing. So I'm curious if this would work or if I would just end up in jail. So what if, because the Peloton screen is essentially a tablet, almost everybody.
And don't forget the third option.
What's that?
It's either douchey.
Oh, douchey. Yeah, totally. Well,
Third option is douchey.
yeah. Well, when I'm talking,
We always assume
it's
he's
just
leaning
kind
toward
of
douchey.
inferred that I'm going to say something douchey. So like, what if, since it's a tablet, like, what if you signed into your own Apple Music or your own Spotify account, and then they had a playlist built and you streamed it from there while you watched the workout person instructor? Would that work legally, or would that be just create a whole new bunch of problems?
We don't know. The easy answer is no.
He's like, give it a shot, bandit.
But I did see that there are Peloton users who jailbreak their tablet and do all kinds of things like that.
Yes. Yes, they do.
They do Netflix and actually I think they have a relationship now with Apple Music and Spotify.
They do, but their relationship is, just to be clear, I just want to put out there that people that do that are breaking their warranty. So that's my little plug.
It's our disclaimer.
Also, people that use Apple and Spotify, the agreement they have is such that you can like a song you're listening to in an on-demand ride or run, and then that gets connected to your Apple Music or your Spotify account, and it becomes its own playlist. So I have a Peloton playlist on my Spotify, and every song I've ever liked on a Peloton ride or run shows up in there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it wouldn't really.
But they could develop, more functions, as they continue their relationship, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure that they could. I think this whole, licensing thing kind of put a kibosh on that, because they started to go and do a bunch of different things that were new with music. And then I think they kind of had to put a lot of that on hold while they figured this out.
Right.
But I would think that what Tom's suggestion would do would also kind of be a bummer for people at home, because you'd have to have another subscription.
Right.
I know
right. Most people in today's age do, but not everyone does. And it would create its own problem in that way.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about holdouts, I'm running into an issue with my job where, we pay ASCAP BMI fees for the music that gets performed at the concert venue, right? And Irving Azoff, who's a famous band manager, and has decided some of his best clients, he has kind of started his own publishing company, and they're going around saying well,
you got to pay these too.
You got to pay these too now. So it's like, oh yeah, you paid your ASCAP BMI fees, but if you are going to play an Eagles song, then you got to pay us too. If you're going to play a Boston song,
reverse bandit.
And so, but now the problem is, it's like, well, wait, if everybody starts doing this,
how are you ever?
Then why even have ASCAP and BMI?
Yes.
And how are we supposed to go and negotiate 100 different deals?
Right.
Because the soccer team might play a song, Right. And it's scary if this works, that's to have it, shattered and fragment like that would be a nightmare, because we want to pay, we want people to get paid for their work, but
don't make it so hard.
Don't make it Byzantine either.
Right. Right. I mean, that's why I think, given the technology that we have now, it really is possible to just have a marketplace, right? Where you just go on a site and you say, this is what I'm either am playing or will play, or I just want everything under the sun, and everyone sort of participates in it. And it gets regulated more almost like a stock market, by the government, rather than, going to the PROs or the U.S. Copyright Office and registering. You just, register your song with the music stock exchange, or whatever you want to call it. And everyone can go on and license what they need in one central depository. And it's just regulated for fraud and abuse, essentially. I think that's the system that would make sense, given the technology that we have, and, things like blockchain and things like that, where the big issue, I think, that confronts that is, a lot of times when you talk about one-off negotiation of copyrighted work, it's behind a closed curtain. No one really knows, unless you've done it before, how much people are supposed to be paid for things.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the big places don't want to give that sort of privacy up, because, you lose a lot of leverage when you do that, and potentially a lot of money. So, but I think that's the thing that makes most sense to me. It's most fair for everyone. It's just convincing folks that there's more money to be made that way and lowering the transaction costs. Because as you say, not just for the venue, but also for all the individual artists, right? Now they have to go to all the other venues as well.
Yeah.
And that's expensive. So it's just more transaction costs for everyone. I think sync fees are automatically like that because there is no central place like an ASCAP or BMI to do that. But if you start looking at, public performance rights like that, I mean, it can really get out of hand.
Yeah. I remember Conan O'Brien when he was on The Tonight Show and they were going to let him go, but he still had episodes to do. He had his band playing the most expensive songs he could find as the interviewers walked out. Like Tom Hanks walked out and they played like Get By With a Little Help From My Friends, and it was just like, and I think Questlove was like, I've got the sheet in front of me. That just cost him like $200,000.
Oh my god!
Like the Beatles don't license. I mean, that's a rough license to get, and it was like that was just his little dig on the way out the door.
That's pretty brilliant.
So before we let you go, I saw an article today that I found fascinating. It's not Peloton related, but it is copyright related. So, and I'm just curious to know your thoughts on would this work? So the two musicians got together, and they're programmers also, right? They're computer programmers and musicians, and they wrote MIDI songs, which is, the MIDI, which where it's like just little computer things, and then you can plug it in, and it'll, you can do other things with it. But they wrote an algorithm, right? And they used that algorithm to record every possible 8-note, 12-beat melody combo in MIDI form. And they put it on a hard drive. They copyrighted it, and then they released it into the wild and said, "We are giving this to everyone under like fair use laws. Like we're giving it up, Creative Commons." And so they're basically saying every melody ever existed was copyrighted and released into the Creative Commons. You can't sue people over melodies anymore. Huh. Thoughts?
That's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, so that has been a discussion for a long time, right? Like the fact that there really are finite,
right?
There's only a finite amount of music. I mean, it's funny. It's certainly interesting, but I don't think it would be deemed enforceable. Just to sort of say we mechanically recorded all music essentially, and now we're releasing it as public domain. I mean, technically that's true now, right? There's a finite number of notes. There's a finite number of harmonies. There's, but we seem to have created as much music as we have so far, and there seems to be no limit. So I don't think that will get very far. But it is an interesting idea, right? And I really love copyright, as you can tell. So I'm a super nerd on this stuff. But like that is, that's kind of where we've come. So prior to, the first big technology was the printing press. And before that, like the idea of authorship, right, was very much like from the medieval times, was this notion that, God is speaking through you, or some higher force is speaking through you. So that human authorship wasn't even like a socially recognized thing.
It was almost the same way that like Native Americans didn't understand the concept of land ownership.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. It wasn't personal, right? It was communal. So intellectual property is the same way. It wasn't personal, it was communal. And so that's still true. I mean, no one creates art in a vacuum.
Right.
I mean, we don't know, everyone is inspired by something.
Yeah.
But I think, the idea, the notion that we have these incentives in place makes sense. And there even now, I mean, I'm trying to remember the name of the book. I can't, maybe I'll email it to you afterwards. But there's a theory out there that says, in fact, that the Constitution itself, which is like blasphemous for a lawyer to say, but the Constitution, which vests this power in Congress to regulate copyrights and patents, in fact, doesn't work. Like people would be creating just as much artwork without the monopoly right and copyright than they would if there wasn't. I don't know if I buy that, but like that's a theory that exists out there. And so this notion of like community and community authorship and not owning it would not necessarily limit the amount of or the quality of the artwork that gets created. Maybe that's true if it's like a small project, but I mean, when I think about big film projects, when you think about like the Marvel
That's
movies,
exactly where my mind went.
You have to have like a financial incentive to create something like that.
Nobody's making Infinity War if they can't make money off of it. Yeah, you'll still have singer-songwriters, but but you won't. But
you're not making a $400 million film, like, because you just want to do good in the world.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you so much for talking.
I love those.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm a nerd. I've got 85 boxes of comic books.
And he has a whole separate podcast where they talk about movies, and like he has a whole theory about all the Avengers movies and how they're the greatest movies that have ever been, and like, oh my god,
don't get me started. Yeah. So, but
New Jack City is your favorite.
Yeah, that's where I was headed. So you were in New Jack City.
I was.
If you could tell us that story before you go, I would love to know about your time in New Jack City and what, if anything, you remember, because you were little, right?
I was 14. 13.
Oh, okay. I just, when I read it, it sounded like you were like a little kid. So, okay. So you were a teenager. So
okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I'll tell you two quick stories.
Yeah,
So I was a teenager. I grew up in Harlem. The scene was shot in Harlem. Some of the scenes were shot like down the street from my house. So I go and I do, I meet like all these legends, right? Like people that I've grown up like as a kid, like Ice-T. Ice-T did the scene with me, but Wesley Snipes, Mario Van Peebles, Fab Five Freddy was one of the producers. Like these are people that I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I'm getting to meet these people. And I do my scene, and months later the movie comes out, and I'm like, I'm gonna be the man when I go back to school. I went to a performing arts high school too, so I thought, oh man, they're gonna love me, right? So I get back to school, and my scene, what I did in the movie was I told Ice-T, who plays the cop, where Nino Brown, who's the crook in the movie, I tell him where the crook is. So I snitch on Nino Brown,
right?
And so I get back and I'm like, yeah, I'm the man. And everybody who comes in is like, you're the snitch. Like, it was like the worst day of my high school life.
Oh, no.
God, even at a performing arts school. Like that's...
You don't snitch.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So it was like not, yeah. So anyway, so then much later. So let's see, that was high school. So like 15, 20 years later, because I didn't go straight through to law school. I'm summering at my law firm. So I got hired at a large law firm. I was just doing my summer gig, and then, you come back and get hired full time. So in the summer, halfway through the summer, I'm walking out, and one of the security guards at the front of the building, like kind of sheepishly comes up to me, and he's like, excuse me, can I ask you a question? And I'm 30 by that time. And he goes, we were wondering, were you in New Jack City?
No.
I was like, how is that possible? And I was like, yes, I was. And he turns around, he's like, I told you. I was like, how is that possible? I'm like twice the size. Like, how do I even look like that kid anymore? But they recognized me.
Oh my goodness.
And they were like, stay away from that guy. He's a snitch.
He's a snitch. That's right.
So I think that's amazing.
So those are my two New Jack City stories.
That's great. And I also think it's amazing that you went to a performing arts school, because if you think about it, most stories you hear are about people who, like, their parents wanted them to be lawyers and doctors, and they disappointed them by going into the arts, and somehow you did it completely backwards.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. You flip-flopped it.
I feel like,
well, my mom ran arts institutions, so she would have been happy either way.
Well,
that's good.
I feel like there's like a dance teacher that's like, I'm so disappointed that you squandered your talent on a law degree.
Well, that happened. So I'll tell you one more acting story. So I go into an audition. I was in high school, going to an audition. He actually liked me, but he looked at me. He recognized my mom. I don't know how, but he knew who my mom was. And I looked just like my mom, especially back then. And he looked at me. He goes, my mom's name is Mary. He said, are you Mary Campbell's son? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, oh man. And he wound up giving her a part opposite Susan Sarandon, and I didn't get the part. So thanks. So you're welcome, Mom, for getting you a part.
Again with the flip-flopping.
Yeah, exactly. Total.
And that was the day.
That's the truth. That's why it made me say it, because you're like that tells it all.
That's the day he decided to become a lawyer. He's like, I'm suing my mom.
Exactly. It's like, if I audition and my mom gets the role, I think I should probably pick another profession.
Yeah, you're like, I want to cut.
I do. Whenever she gets her residual checks, I'm like, give me, she gets like $2 check. I'm like, hey, give me my 10 cents.
What was the project?
What's that?
What was the project that it was for?
Lorenzo's Oil.
Okay, yeah,
Wow.
that was a big movie.
She was the principal who talks to Susan Sarandon when the boy is like first getting ill.
That is so
That's
cool.
awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Good for your mom.
Yeah.
But you know what? New Jack City's still a bigger movie.
That is true.
There you go.
She couldn't take that away from you.
She could not take that away from me.
Susan Sarandon, Ice-T wins.
Yeah, that's true.
Every time.
Yeah.
Twice on Sundays.
He has better tweets.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. This has been very enlightening, and I'm really glad that you told us that I was right about how all that went down. That's the real takeaway here, and we appreciate it.
We all know.
Yeah.
That's what really matters.
Yeah.
You two are married?
Yes.
Yes, that's really at
woman.
the end of the day, that's what matters most, right? I've been married for 14 years. I know.
Yeah.
That's the question that really matters.
Yeah. So
Just to be clear, I never argued that way.
So
that's the only way a guy gets to win.
Yeah, exactly. When you let us.
Okay, that's fair.
Right.
Even and he
If
argues.
we tried, we'd lose.
Yeah, and think about that. An attorney. He argues for a living. And when he goes home, it's like,
I lose. That's right.
He's like, you hang up the law shingle at the door.
That's right.
That shit's not going to fly here.
Awesome.
So,
Not here.
So I guess thank you so much. And where can people find you online if you would like to be found? Twitter or Instagram or Friendster?
Whatever you would like to put out there.
So Twitter, Instagram, it's all, it's at _Sekou _Sekou. And you can find me on my firm website at colhanemeadows.com.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much. This has been very enlightening, and we really, really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Well, that was very enlightening.
Absolutely it was.
And I love all the New Jack City stories. That was great.
Yes.
But I think the real takeaway from that interview
okay.
is that we were right.
Absolutely.
Let's not undersell the fact that we were right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, really, basically, I just passed the bar.
You can start practicing now, I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty much a lawyer now.
Yeah, totally.
So take that. And
for anyone who doesn't know, that was a joke. I don't want to get any nasty messages about it, is what I'm saying.
Nope, I'm a lawyer. Not a joke at all. I'm a lawyer now.
Oh, dear God.
I'm going to hang out a shingle. Do they still do that?
I don't think so.
I don't know. Well, I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay.
I'm going to wear suspenders. I'm going to be an old-timey lawyer.
I was like, feel like you're just watching old movies now.
Yeah. I'm going to have like a straw hat, one of those fans. You know how like the courthouse was always really hot?
Yeah.
And I'm going to have one of those fans.
Are you in To Kill a Mockingbird?
Maybe. Or Inherit the Wind.
Okay. One of those for sure.
I'm not Atticus Finch.
No.
Let's not kid ourselves.
No, I mean, you just started.
I could totally be Spencer Tracy.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And also, he was kind of a dick. And
so you got that going for you.
And he loved to, like, when somebody would say something, he would come back at him with something funny and cutting and snarky.
That is you.
I'm totally Inherit the Wind.
Okay. All right. I'm feeling it.
There you go. So if you have any old-timey trials that you need me to help with, I'm your guy.
He can practice in all 50 states.
Well, there was only like 37 states. I can practice in 37 states because the other ones didn't exist. They were just territories.
Okay.
So last week, I normally say what, pray tell, do you have in store for people next week? But I know.
Yeah.
I know because it was last week was supposed to be Canada, Brenda, but because of the breaking news of the music stuff, and we fell into this wonderful interview with somebody who knew a lot about it, and we bumped that to the front of the line, and Canada, Brenda was kind enough to let us. I mean, I guess she couldn't stop us. She's all the way in Canada, and they're so nice.
They are, like, I mean, as long as you said you were sorry.
Right. Nope.
Sorry.
As long as we say that we're sorry. We're going to say it in your native tongue, Canada, Brenda.
And we're not trying to offend anyone. We're just making
Now you're
jokes.
super worried.
I am. Oh my God. It's like, yeah.
They say sorry.
They
That's
do
a
say
thing.
sorry.
They also say A to Z.
I've never heard that, but
That's
I
a
believe
thing.
you.
That's
I
a
believe
thing.
you.
So, but anyway, hers will be next week.
Yes. And I'm so excited. Canada Brenda is awesome, and everybody
Yes.
needs to know her. And it's Brenda Kramer, if you don't know, if you haven't put those two together.
Gotcha. So until then, where can people find you?
People can find me on Facebook.com/Crystal D. O'Keefe. They can find me on Twitter, Instagram, the bike, and of course the tread at Clip Out Crystal.
And they can find me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at Facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. You can find the show online, Facebook.com/The Clip Out. While you're there, like the page, join the group, and wherever you're getting your podcast from, be sure and subscribe or follow so you never miss an episode. And subscribe to our newsletter at theclipout.com, and you'll have all the show notes and links and all that fancy stuff delivered straight to your inbox, and you won't have to go hunting for it. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, keep pedaling.
And running.